Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today, let's talk about the quarterbacks, man, because everybody asking to talk about the quarterbacks. Everybody want to talk about the quarterbacks, so we're going to talk about the quarterbacks. Let's start off here. Quarterbacks in general, let's start there. One of the things that I felt like I should mention as I see the conversations online, see the conversations in person, I see the conversations with sports media. Let me tell you, quarterbacks do not have to be the leader. And I think some people really get that confused. There's a lot of cliches. There's a lot of old narratives when it comes to sports, especially football, where people kind of cling to that. A lot of people, players, coaches, fans, they're everywhere. And one of those is that the quarterback has to be the leader of the team. Now, leadership, as we have found over years, can mean a lot of different things. But some people stick to the old school thought of leadership. Oh, I stand in front. I'm the loudest. I'm the one that gives the direction and all that. That's not what a leader is always, that's not what it always has to be. And so I guess I'm really saying two things. Number one, if you're thinking about it in that way, in the traditional thought of leadership, quarterbacks don't always have to be that. I know people say they're the face of the franchise. They get the most criticism. They get the most praise. And that's true because they do have to do a lot of the work. They got to be involved with more. They got to be involved with handing the ball off or throwing the ball comes from the quarterback. Whether you're audibling, all that comes from the quarterback. But even with that being said, you don't have to be the rah-rah guy. You don't have to be the guy that does the pregame speech. You don't have to be the guy that goes to everybody and pushes them. That's not always true. And so I see a lot of people talking about, who's soft and who's not like the hard-nosed guy and who's not the guy that you won't follow and all that. But honestly, I tell you, from my experience, when it comes to players and it comes to coaches, it's not about all the stuff you say. People talk about body language, and don't get me started on Cutler and that whole stupid stuff. Yes, everybody that talks trash about Cutler because his body language, whatever, get out of here. That stuff does not matter. It's all about how you produce. Guess what? Cutler could go sit in the nosebleeds of the stands whenever the offense is not on the field. But if he was throwing 50 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, when nobody care. So I don't want to hear about the body language and how close you are, how rah-rah you are. Guess what? Who's the most rah-rah guy in the league right now? Baker Mayfield. And guess what? He's not doing well. People have thrown him to the side. So I don't want to hear about all that. That does not matter. Guys want people that can produce. And so in saying a new idea of leadership, there is leading by example. There are guys that just don't have to talk, go out and do it. That is one way of being a leader, you can say. So for me, when we're talking about all these quarterbacks and their qualities, I just got to throw that out there. This whole idea that the quarterback needs to be the guy in front, that's not true. That 100% is not true. Anyway, that's just me kind of on the soapbox. So let's start number one with Trubisky, our current quarterback. A lot of people in these conversations, I already said what I thought about Trubisky. But a lot of people in these conversations are talking about what we should do. And I've already said my thoughts about Trubisky. I said I don't think his future for the best of his career is not with us. But with that being said, there's a whole lot of talk about him not taking criticism well. And all this pretty much, again, like they say, winning cures everything. And opposite losing brings out every narrative possible. So now they're talking about his comments and saying he's soft, saying that, he admits that criticism hurts him and all that. And okay, whatever, he's human. But there's people just saying, see, this is why he shouldn't be the quarterback and all this stuff. Look, I've said from day one, Trubisky's wheels are spinning. It does not seem authentic with him. It seems like he's being what people think he should be. And that goes back to this traditional idea of the quarterback and leadership. And so that's what I've always seen from Trubisky, and that's what we're starting to see. But going forward, I made myself very clear, I don't think he's the future. So people keep saying, what should we do? I think there's a number of options. We need to look at a different route. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is Trubisky's third year. So we got him for one more year. And so trade is a possibility because you got him for a year plus an option on his contract. So that's 2 years. Trade is a possibility at the end of the season, not right now. It's amazing how many people keep saying, hey, can we trade for such and such? Like, do you not know the trade deadline's over? You obviously don't pay attention. But anyway, so we could trade him. That's a possibility. We could keep him, bring in competition, and have him as the backup if he loses out. That's a possibility. But I wouldn't be, honestly, I'm not married to any way. I think at this point, he will eventually move on at the end of his obligation in his contract. Definitely not cutting him or anything silly like that. But I think trade or just letting him ride out that last year is a possibility. So there's that for the play on the field. Not so much this whole headlines about Trubisky not liking criticism and all that. No player likes criticism. It's funny how people will sit here and chime in and join the bandwagon when players get mad about their Madden rating, but then try to criticize somebody for not liking criticism. Like their Madden rate, that's the exact same thing. They're just complaining about what they feel they should be rated as. It's the same thing. So anyway, moving on. We got Teddy Bridgewater. So this is a funny one to me. And I've mentioned this on the channel. Like, there's so many people, and literally, I'm not saying everybody, but 90% of these people start talking about Teddy Bridgewater after we played the Saints. I guarantee you, these are people on the surface level. These are people looking at the narrative. Oh, Teddy Bridgewater is one of the best backups in the league. Oh, Teddy Bridgewater is this and that. Oh, the Saints didn't lose a game with Teddy Bridgewater. And that's so surface level. That's putting together a whole lot of different dynamics and just, again, giving the quarterback too much praise. Here's the facts. And the funny thing is when I hear people talk about him in Minnesota. So I get that he's shown some good things with the Saints. But then people bring up, oh, yeah, he used to destroy us in Minnesota. Did he destroy us? Okay, because I mentioned this to somebody else. Last time I checked, he played one full season with Minnesota, 16 games. And in that season, he didn't even throw for 3,500 yards. He threw 14 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Not a great ratio. And so despite like them winning games at the time or whatever they did, it is so funny how people will look at Teddy Bridgewater and the narrative, not even Teddy Bridgewater, because I guarantee you these people don't watch Teddy Bridgewater. I guarantee you they haven't watched no film. I guarantee you they didn't watch anything besides him playing the Bears. But they will look at the narrative of Teddy Bridgewater as one of the best young quarterback, best backup quarterbacks. He should be a starter. And then they say, yeah, man, and they rewrite history. Yeah, remember in Minnesota when he did this and did that? Teddy Bridgewater was average in Minnesota. And I was not a big fan of him coming out the draft. I put that on the table. He has a weird wind-up motion. It's still weird. It doesn't deliver maximum velocity. He's not that great of an athlete. I mean, at this point, most quarterbacks in space can get you something, but he's not going to, take over with his legs. I think he does have some knowledge, but again, overall, I just think he's an average quarterback. And so people were so enamored with him coming out of college, and he got to play, and he did a little something, and ended up getting injured. Now, I give him that. You don't take away points for being injured. He got injured, and that's what threw off his career, because he would have been a Vikings starter. But when you look at what he did with the Vikings when he did play, it wasn't that great. They ran the ball, they played defense, and that's their formula, and that's what it would have been. And so people look at him with the Saints, where you got Alvin Kamara, where you got Sean Payton putting up plays, where you got one of the most solidified offensive lines, where you got Michael Thomas, a 50-50 ball artist, where you got a lot of different weapons and a defense that's finally gelling, and they won games, and people act like they can rewrite history. Oh, he was elite in Minnesota. Was he elite? Less than 3,500 yards is elite. 14 touchdowns to 9 interceptions is elite. So I don't know, man. I mean, I do know, but it's funny to watch these fans get crazy. And I've said it before. I understand the disappointment of the season has pushed people to extremes on the positive side and the negative side. But it's just silly. Like, I do think we need to make a move at quarterback. But I don't know, man. People just grasp at straws. This is not Madden. This is like, oh my God, what's going on? Who's here? Okay, let's get them. This is not what you should do. You should never panic like that. Like, again, in 20 years, none of these quarterbacks starting right now, for the most part, will be playing. And so is the league going to be over? No, there's going to be new quarterbacks. So there's going to be people coming down the pike in the draft. We don't know what happens. Jalen Ramsey had an interaction that sent his direction south with the Jags, and now he's gone. And in this social media age, stars are forcing themselves out of situations. So my point is, a current star or a current good quarterback might not be where they are in a few years. So it's nothing that you need to force. I get a lot of people are like, our defense is so elite that we got to win now mode. And I don't necessarily agree with that. But even if it was the truth, I don't believe in forcing anything. I believe, now again, that's my bias as a coach. I believe in really finding the best way to utilize your team. But my point is, overall, people are like, okay, Teddy Bridgewater, that's the name in the narrative. We got to get him. And it's just like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that he's going to be as good, because I've always said, comparing quarterbacks, I don't do it. Different situation, different coaching, different playbook, different supporting cast, O-line, running back, all that. And so people are in love with Bridgewater right now. I love how people are like, we need to get Bridgewater. Hands down, Bridgewater's our guy. It's like, to me, I don't think those people actually watch tape. So, no disrespect to Bridgewater. I hope he continues to get better. But after this many years in the league, I think he is what he is. And I don't see him being an elite quarterback all on his own right. Again, Tom Brady to me is the only quarterback that on his own right has been elite, because you've seen different team after different team and different roster him still be able to get it done. Most quarterbacks need a supporting cast. So that's where I'm at. Cam Newton. People forgot that. Cam Newton, interesting situation. Injuries, so that's where it starts. And then the person behind him happened to win. If Kyle Allen came in and played like people expected Kyle Allen to play, we wouldn't be talking right now. But the fact is, he's doing well. The fact is, people like C-Mac, Christian McCaffrey, who I had as my top running back in that draft class, people are like, this guy's the face of the franchise. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Prisoner of the moment. Whatever the case, it seems, and we don't know, it seems like it's moving towards Cam Newton possibly being out of the Carolina Panthers after this year. Now, if that's true, then we can talk about it. Because people are like, okay, we need to trade for Cam. Everybody needs to trade for Cam, because there's talks, and we don't know this either, but there's talks that he's healthy and he could play, but the Panthers are doing so well, they don't necessarily want to go ahead and do that. Now, it's important to realize he'll be under contract for the next year, so it's not like he'll be a free agent, but people are saying we should go out and trade for him in the offseason. And so he's getting up there. He's 30 years old. I mean, black don't crack, but he's still getting up there. He's an older quarterback. And so people are like, he's on a downtrend from his, MVP year. But a lot of people say, with Cam, we could get something that fits a veteran presence, a leadership command, a little skill set that's different than Trubisky, and we can go. Now, all that's true. I will admit, it excites me to think about the possibility. And I don't mean that I think we're talking about doing it. I don't think the Panthers are talking about doing it. At this point, I would say it's a 1% chance we get Cam Newton because I don't know. But the thought of him being in Chicago does excite me. There is something to be said about a quarterback with some swag, a quarterback with a personality, African-American quarterback in a city with a large African-American population. Those all are things that I think about. And I love watching Cam play since then because of a lot of those things. But when you talk about on the field, you're talking about the ability to improvise, which Trubisky has not shown. As athletic as he is, as much as improvising has become a big thing with Aaron Rodgers and Russ Wilson leading the way, a lot of quarterbacks in college have started to follow that. Baker Mayfield, Pat Mahomes, all that. And so as much as that is, Trubisky hasn't shown that. He doesn't have the confidence. And so on the opposite end, you talk about a gunslinger. And so I talked about Teddy Bridgewater not performing that great. Cam Newton, outside of his rookie year and his MVP year, hasn't been a blowout in the stats department. But we know that's because he's a gambler. He has a lot of interceptions because he gambles. He believes in himself. He's confident. He's more of a gunslinger. He'll use his legs to extend the play, be a gunslinger. And so with that, it is a risk. It might not be a 50-50, but in the moment, it feels like a 50-50. He scrambles out, puts the ball up. It's a 50-50 chance. And people rather have a 50-50 chance than a 0% chance. When Mitch doesn't move out the pocket, when Mitch doesn't put the ball up and eats the sack or throws it short, 100% it's not going to be a big play. But with Cam Newton and other gunslingers like him, there is that 50% chance he might make a big play, or it might be a big, problem. Same thing with Cutler. I would venture to say people would like Cutler more than they like Trubisky because Cutler was confident. He threw things that he shouldn't have thrown, but he also made that work for him. And so when you're talking about in the whole compass, people value strong arms because you can do throws that other quarterbacks can't. And people value confidence. And so, again, it might be a roller coaster like a Jay Cutler where it's like, oh, crap, we don't know what's going to happen. He's not consistent. And Cam has not been consistent. But people are betting on the upside. And I love the thought of Cam Newton right now and Trubisky because that is a pretty picture of how the draft is. For people that don't understand how the NFL draft works, and this is an NFL draft channel, that's what you're talking about when you're betting on someone's skill set, the upside. And so with Cam, you say he's not been great. He's not like a lot better than Trubisky, but he does bring an upside because he will gamble, he will take shots, and it might pay off. Whereas with Trubisky, he's not going to take shots, he's not going to gamble, and he's not going to extend the play. And so 100% we're not going to get an upside with him. But with Cam, we might. And so that's in a nutshell what the draft turns into. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to talk about. It's interesting to see. Again, I think it's a 1% chance it happens. But for the people that want to know, what do I think about Cam? How do I think Cam will help? I think, again, Cam brings that improvising ability that Trubisky doesn't show. And, he'll try to extend the play, make something out of a play. And, of course, he'll run the ball. We'll see how much that is after this injury, but he'll run. And he adds another threat as a runner as well. So when you're talking about Mahomes and when you're talking about all these other offenses that's a little more dynamic, a lot of it is space. That's what it is. Defense worries about space. And when you got a quarterback that can take up yards, when you got shifty receivers like A-Bomb and Gabriel and Robinson that can beat you laterally, and you got to think, okay, as a linebacker, because that's where it comes down to a lot of the times. As a linebacker, am I going to stay in this space to try to play with this receiver across the middle, or am I going to step up and try to stop the running back or the quarterback? And when you have an extra element to think about, it hurts defenses. And then in those times when you're not sure, or when there might be a safe play that's a 2-yard gain when you need 10 yards, or there might be an 80-yard game if you put it up, there's a quarterback that's going to put it up. And that's also a plus that I think we don't have with Trubisky. So am I saying it's way better? Am I saying it's going to perfectly work with Nagy? No, I don't know. Of course not. But I think Cam does bring something different on the social side, but also on the field as well. And it does excite me to think about it, but it's not something I'm like, we have to do or need to do. Because honestly, again, it's a risk. Cam could come in here and be just as bad as Trubisky, if not worse, trying to force plays. So there's that. But anyway, decided to have a conversation about the quarterback. Hope you enjoyed. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around, get the conversation started. Remember, stay up and bear down.